Welcome to this edition of More Than Velocity. I'm your host, Ryan Croton. I'm the Executive Vice President of ArmCare.com. I'm here with Jordan Osigura. He does so many things for our organization, from handling sales to, directing pitching performance and everything in between. But we got a couple unbelievable guests on our podcast today. One is Jason Smith, and just going to give you a little background on him because we want to dive into it. But we work together at the Angels. He is an incredible scouting mind, very data interested, and he's really brought some great athletes to myself and Jordan to work with, and there's really nobody better that you could work with than Myles Patton. He's just been a joy to work with, and he's here. He's joining us from Texas A&M. They had a stellar start to their season, and we're going to dive into this whole process of how Myles has evolved as a player and how we have we've been helping him along the way. So I want to turn it over to Jason. Jason, talk a little bit about your role with the Ballengee Group, because that's just listening to what you're doing is, I think that's really the future, of being an actual advisor, for a player. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, it worked out to where, uh, what agencies do, they are to maximize a player's contract when they're negotiating with major league teams, plain and simple. And where I come from in scouting, in 23 years of scouting, from an area scout to a West Coast cross checker to a national cross checker, and sitting next to Billy Epler, our general manager, as one of his right-hand men, and player procurement basically is what I was doing. Going to Panama and Dominican Republic and looking at 14-year-olds and then getting back on a plane and looking at college seniors or, juniors for our next draft pick, and pro stuff, everything in between. So after, with my experience, and especially with interviewing players, talking to players about, trying to figure out what we're getting into with this player, with the Angels, I was always amazed that they weren't prepped and they didn't know really what they were doing. And it was shocking to have interview a first round, possible selection, and they didn't know, they didn't have an arm care routine, and they didn't really have a good bullpen routine. They had no idea what professional baseball was all about or what they were getting into. They were just good at baseball. Um, so it was just a good fit for me to come over to Ballengee Group and get off airplanes and out of hotel rooms, and have a chance to give back. And the Ballengee Group offered me this new position as their scouting director, director of recruiting, director of baseball, whatever you want to call it. And in my this is my third year with them, I've been able to kind of instill that mentality where we're not just maximizing what we're doing for the player at the draft or in arbitration or in free agency. We're going to maximize the player for who they can be here and now. And that
Yeah.
includes, everything that's involved with that, like getting you better, having a better idea of what scouts are looking for, giving them an idea of what professional baseball is like, what real training is like, getting objective data, or even just learning about your pitch shapes. Like, let's start at the beginning, and learn about how your body moves, and just maximizing the player and the person as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how you've kind of taken it full circle as a holistic process. We always talked about that, with the Angels, and we looked at all the surveys of players, and that was one of the things that I reviewed in addition to their athletic ability. It was like, what kind of process do they have? And I remember just, tying this into making an introduction to Myles is when you first talked about him, you said, I got this player. Um, all he really needs is a process. He's got, incredible ability. He's going to be a high level transfer portal player. And he could use some help. So Myles doesn't know the backstory, but as I communicated with him, I said, hey, I'm going on a guy's weekend to Hermosa Beach, which is like, it was going to be a restaurant weekend. And I told my buddy, I said, I got to find out if this kid is anywhere near me because I need to meet him in person. Just off of, Smitty's recommendation, I was already like, I had my blinders on. I got to meet Myles Patton, got to meet Myles Patton. And my buddy said, you know what? He's like, you do what you want. You get up in the morning, you go see whoever. And when I met Myles, you're kind of talking to somebody who I didn't really realize his age. He was quite mature, real even keel. Myles, your dad's a lot more excitable than you are, so there's a lot of focus, and I can see when I was with him, there's absorbing information. That's one of the things I can take from my athletes. I'm like, man, this kid can learn. And so, we hit it off there, and then we brought in Jordan as part of, the throwing programs component and optimizing the things that he's doing. But Myles, I want to turn it over to you, man, because, talk about your trajectory going from Long Beach and now you're at the apex, I think, of college baseball where you're at now, and how that transition has been, and really dive into like the processes that make Myles Patton Myles would be awesome, man.
Yeah. I think just coming into college baseball, starting like my freshman year, I think that I really like just spending so much time with it. You really like, for me at least, I realized that I wanted to try and find things that I could do and just find a process and find a routine that I could stick with. And I think I bounced around with a lot of different things. Some things stuck, some things were not really beneficial, kind of just doing it to do it. And I think that went on for a while, just trying to refine that, learning from good teammates that I had, learning from good coaches that I had, learning from people that I was around training with and whatnot, just to take different pieces from everybody and kind of try and build out my own routine. Um, I think it was good for a lot of ways, and then that ended that sophomore year, ended up missing some time just from inflammation in my arm and just kind of having some discomfort, not really knowing what was going on, kind of getting worried about that. And then Jason obviously connected me with you guys, and it was just a much different experience than I had been used to, and kind of exposed me to a lot of new things that I never even which had never even heard about, never even really understood, or never had done. Um, and so I think just kind of that introduction and meeting you guys and getting to work with you guys and seeing what you guys kind of put into my routine and just different things for how much like it really takes to just like from recovery to arm care stuff to workload management to testing your arm and making sure you know where you're at every day. There's just so many just little things that you can do to just keep getting that extra 1% out of it, just keep getting small little wins throughout your process. And I think just all those little things, like are really what makes a difference, really what kind of can separate the great recovery from not so much. I think everybody's in the weight room lifting, getting stronger. Everybody's going to be throwing and refining their pitches and doing all like doing stuff with pitch design, all that stuff. But I think the separator is the little things and kind of the nitty gritty aspects of it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Jordan, you want to add anything before I start talking about Myles, like the data part of how impressive it is, where his arm health is gone, and all the other physical elements. So I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
Yeah, I just think Miles is a great embodiment of there's this thing that everybody knows that I hate in terms of the go play summer ball or take your time and develop. And I remember when we first started with Miles, it was we're not going to do summer ball this year. We have some other things we're going to work on. In I remember it was probably around like had to be around maybe July 4th, somewhere there. You're like, I just feel so strange. Like I feel like I'm behind. I'm not doing summer ball. I'm not doing. And then next thing you know, you're throwing. You're like, oh, I'm throwing like 3 miles an hour harder.
Mhm.
Oh, my slider's doing this. Oh, this is doing that. Oh, all these pitch shapes are getting better. It's like, yeah, we took the summer, we developed those things. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is like there's this new process that you did, right? It was a new understanding. And to me, it was great because you weren't like scared to jump into the deep end. You basically jumped in head first. You didn't know if it said shallow end or not. You said, hey, you know what? Jason says to trust these guys. I'm gonna take his word for it. Let's jump into the pool. Let's see what happens. You're like, it just feels weird because I'm used to doing this. I'm gonna give it a whirl. And we saw all these great things. And I remember Ryan sent me, goes, hey, I'm thinking about taking this guy on. Do you know anything about him? And I go through, I check out his baseball reference. I said, well, he's getting better each year.
Mhm.
That's one good thing. Looked at the delivery. I said, there's a little bit of lacking of strength in there, and this guy's going to be really freaking good. And he's the guy that me and Jason would sit around in the draft room and kind of salivate over, going, this guy could be interesting. We just got to get him strong. We don't really need to do anything.
Right.
Like just keep the bumpers up, get him stronger, pass him over to Ryan, and get and go from there. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Is he's honestly very exciting to work with. From gosh, it was almost what has it been, about 6 months, maybe 8 months, when I looked at his data on just on Baseball Reference, looking it up at Long Beach State, seeing that old locker room we were sharing, whatever
Oh
that
yeah.
was,
We
four
were there
years
during the
ago, whatever,
COVID years. Yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah, we're
Dirtbags.
familiar with Long Beach State, but yeah, overall, great numbers, and the where the baseline starting point was, continually getting better, and just real prone to learning. And one of the few guys that looked at the ArmCare data and was like, "Oh, this makes sense. I'm just going to go in for it, get going on this."
The thing that really impressed me is that before we started training, and then that was the first thing. Let's start getting the arm on a trajectory to gain strength. Typically when you work with an athlete, they're especially an older one who, might be close to 21 years old, you start seeing some plateaus and you have to do some different things. Myles was like a straight Nike swoosh, and it just keeps building. Like, a spoiler alert, kid has over 300 pounds of arm force. Like, think about that. For a throwing arm, that's a lot more than what a lot of people squat, and it's just a consistent approach. But he's regimented, and I don't want to fill up your head, Myles, but there's a lot of things that I see in you. It's just so admirable. Like, we were getting videos, remember when he was going to visit all these schools, he's throwing in the back by a pool. I'm like, dude, I don't want you to fall in. He's
Well,
taking
that's the funny thing too, is he took it so serious.
it.
I don't remember what school you were visiting, but you went out there and you threw. I was like, never do that again.
Yeah, we
You're
were
like,
like, I
why?
was
I'm like,
to
because
me.
it's like, do not run. It's slippery. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
don't do
yeah.
that.
But to me, it's
But he
like
was getting the work in. He was getting his work in.
yeah, well, but I saw him, and this is the thing that I think is the make of high level athletes is when they're obsessed about performance, obsessed about the process, and that was something that, like, I was taken aback. I was like, Jordan, this kid's nuts. Like, sometimes, he would have a busy day, and Matt and Myles, I'm talking for you here, but he's talking to schools. There's a lot of things that weigh on him. Got to make family decisions, got to make, and it's 11 o'clock at night and we're getting videos from Myles throwing. Like, he won't take a day off, just saying, like, man, I'm mentally exhausted today going through all this. And kudos to Jason, because Jason's really kind of, he's tying in, where these conversations go and how to manage Myles' time. But, like, he's committed. But a couple highlights with Myles. So the shoulder balance is there. Like, this is just bringing up to the first game. I said to Jordan, I was listening to Theory of a Dead Man with my wife. We stayed over at a beautiful resort, and I said, I'm setting my alarm for 9 a.m. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm waiting for Myles Patton's ArmCare data on
I
his
think
first
she was
game.
shocked that someone could sleep until 9 a.m. She told me, he's like,
Well, I mean, I'm
what do you need
exhausted.
an alarm at 9 a.m. for?
Yeah. Well, I want, concert, casino. And then, I'm like, I don't see it. And then all of a sudden, I open up and I see Myles test data, and he hits a PR, leading into his first game, over 300 pound, well over, I think it was like 315 pounds, something like this. Arm is balanced. I'm going to talk about the post exam on his arm after throwing, because I think, Myles, you threw 88 pitches, right? That game.
Yeah. Hmm.
I want you to talk to us about, because that's the spoiler alert. Your arm was supercharged going in that game, but talk to us about that, kind of the whole routine. Your first game with A&M. I mean, with the crowd, with everything else, man.
I mean, yeah, it was a super cool experience. It was good to finally just get out there for real and have it mean something. I think it's always a different level of adrenaline and anxiousness and all that stuff going into like a real season game as opposed to an inter squad. Just it's something that you just can't really create without it being the real thing. So super excited for that. Was able to get some good sleep the night before, which was nice. That was important for sure, and just felt really good waking up. Got a good meal in, and just I mean all the things that you could really want to do. Yeah, just I mean it felt really good. Was excited for the day, and then I think mentally is the biggest thing for me, especially I think when you go into games like that, you want to make sure the arm is there, make sure like the body's feeling right. But once the flip switches, you really have to just focus mentally. I think for me, try to get away from the mechanical stuff, physical stuff, like what if the pitches are good or not that day, and really just make it a competition between you and who you're facing. So um, took in the moment for sure, just getting up there for the first time in a real game. Took in the moment for a second, looked around, and then just got to work and really just kind of locked in mentally.
What did it feel like the first pitch? Like I'm just trying to like see the game through your eyes, like like how did like you got your first pitch, some guys are thinking different thoughts or different strategies. Was it just like nothing? Like was it just overall calmness or like how did you feel about that? Like it's your first pitch for A&M and it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think just throughout this whole fall and preseason, we've done a really good job, especially just me working with our coaches on just refining the mental game. I think just taking it one pitch at a time has been the biggest focus of just everything. It's kind of an individual event, and the past doesn't matter and the future doesn't matter either. It's all you have is that just one pitch right in front of you. So I think was able to take it in and kind of let those feelings and just excitement and all that stuff kind of whirl around. But then once the batter steps in the box, it's just one pitch at a time and just trying to do my job of just filling up the strike zone, really.
Amazing. I mean, the post exam I'm going to talk about, like a lot of players, this is another thing that I think is very unique about Myles is that he's a strategist. He plans. Like I constantly hear this from some other players, like, man, I didn't have time to do an arm care test. I didn't have time to see where I am that day. And it's like, wait a second, just like us, we have a good hour meeting to set each quarter of the year to develop the processes and the strategies, but like you stick to your stuff. And I worry about other players, I want them to learn from you and, who are listening to you in high school or even at the pro level to see that you've got to make time to understand your body. That's been your process. When you get into the locker room, I mean, how much time do you have on game day to like communicate with others, or they just know I'm staying out of Myles's way? Because I feel like that part is big in terms of what they do with A&M. And you mentioned your coaches who are amazing. They really want you to be you.
Hmm.
Uh, talk to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm in a great environment at A&M where all of our coaching staff, from our strength coach, to our head coach, our pitching coach, everybody in between is super open and super accepting of kind of what I'm doing. And I've showed them kind of my data and why I do it and kind of why I like to do it. And I think some of them, our pitching coach, I know specifically did it at his old school, with all his pitchers. Our strength coach has been around a lot of guys who have done it. So I think they're kind of used to it and they've seen guys that have tested their arm kind of in the same way that I do. So everybody's been super cooperative and super open about me just doing it. I mean, like some people might think like, why has this guy got his phone like right 10 to 30 minutes before the game? Like, why is he going on his phone to go do something? But I mean, everybody kind of understands what I'm doing. They know they can trust me. I'm not obviously doing anything wrong, just trying to get that test in. And so luckily in a good environment where everybody's super open and accepting of it, which is the biggest thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. And just to see after the game, there is a term I call it's neurological efficiency, okay? Which means like how much strength can that throwing arm hold on to after one, a very high stress environment because it is your first game. You're not
Mhm.
going out there and just taking an easy breath. I mean, there's some stress there. But also with high intensity throwing volumes and also, your pitch repertoire. I'm going to talk about the data, but people should know the pitches you throw. You want to talk a little bit about what your arsenal is because this is why I think it's kind of interesting what I saw.
Yeah, so I've actually really added a couple things to the arsenal this year. Traditionally, it's just been, I mean, the main three is just the fastball, which is kind of a four seam ride fastball, a slider, which is a little smaller, kind of a gyro slider, and then a changeup, throwing like a kick change right now, and then I've added in like a little bit of a two seam and a cutter fastball just to kind of supplement, kind of get that triangle fastball profile going a little bit. And those are pretty low usage pitches. But that's kind of the whole thing. It's really based around the fastball slider changeup.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing is that most guys, so I'm talking about your forearm now, right? And everybody's worried about Tommy John surgery. They might not know the full element of that, but a big piece of it is not maintaining forearm strength. And especially like pitchers that they throw, cutters or sliders, you tend to see strength deficit, right? They throw curveballs. People always, used to think curveballs are a rough pitch on the arm, but they don't challenge the forearm muscles a lot. And getting back to that neurological efficiency that I was so amazed as I saw you were over 100% of your fresh exam. After throwing 88 pitches, your forearm strength actually got stronger. That to me, that was really impressive. That comes from a really good process and very efficient in the way that you're pitching because it's not creating fatigue there. That I thought was, that was just pretty amazing. And then you add this other layer of command. Forget the stat line, but it was like you threw 5 innings or 8 Ks, a lot of weak contact,
Hmm.
like,
No
it
walks.
was, you were just being very effective and efficient. And then I call that neuromechanical efficiency. It's like kid doesn't lose strength and he maintains command. I mean, that to me is impressive. Like people who are listening to this, and hopefully they get to know the ArmCare data. That's the secret sauce. Like if you're
Hmm.
able to understand something about a pitcher, you want to see how much strength do they retain. And it was just amazing. After the game, you obviously tested, but can you communicate a little bit? Like walk us through like, okay, here's, the game has ended, right?
Hmm.
Now what happens? What's the process that you went through?
So game ends pretty much right away. Just shake coach's hand, head down to the bullpen, get my post test in, which is kind of the first thing, get that in. And then from there, it's pretty much just about starting that recovery process just right away, as quick as possible. So right away, get some protein in, get cherry juice, just get that going. As soon as the trainers are ready, get in there. Get a little bit of soft tissue, or actually after the arm test, first thing is just getting my arm care actual kind of movements in with the bands, some stuff in the weight room, just all around, just kind of trying to conceal that workload all into the one heavy day, just to kind of promote the recovery. So as soon as you're done with that arm care, once you're done pitching, you can kind of just get the recovery process going right away. So then comes a protein, then comes a cherry juice, then get with the trainer. Have a little beet juice like we had talked about last week, kind of implemented that in right before the arm bite.
Yep.
Get that going. Do some stim for a little bit, usually 15 to 25 minutes in the locker room right after the game, and then get my salve on my arm, my magnesium, and kind of just try to get a good meal in, and that's pretty much the bulk of it right there.
Yeah, see, and this is the part like I'm kind of pinching myself. I was sitting with Smitty is that I mean I can't remember one of the players was really interesting. The name I think was Cade something, Smitty. You kind of put us on our radar. He had a survey, and I remember like Miles, you be the same thing when we asked about habits, it was like a page full. I can't remember the school of this pitcher, but I kept thinking to myself, like, this is it. You've committed to an entire process, not just testing your throwing arm, right? There's all these other things,
Hmm.
that go into it. I mean, we're a very involved crew.
Yeah.
All of us, Smitty, me, Jordan, you, but like at the apex of all of this, and I really am hoping other players can learn from you and teams will see this, post college ball is that you're an effective communicator, you know. That
Hmm.
part is important. I mean, it's something that Jordan always we talk about. It's like this guy to me already feels like a major league player because you're reasoning, you're asking questions why. These are really important things, man, for your own learning. Um, I want to
Great point.
shift I want to shift some gears to your family.
I
You
have I have one quick
Oh,
question
okay,
real
go
fast,
ahead.
just still on the performance side of this. So
Okay.
you're talking about adding in these new pitches, and
Hmm.
JK is arguably in the top three pitching coaches in college
Hmm.
baseball. Argue like he might be number one realistically. So that's a very good choice to add those pitches in. Now, when you're doing that, what I think is great is you get to test it against, again, arguably the toughest lineup in college baseball, realistically.
Hmm.
That's a buzz saw. And, opening day or opening week, Elon ran into that real quick when they went to the bullpen. You put a few runners on, and your guys' offense can put up 6, 7, 8 runs in the blink of an eye. So
Yeah.
when you're learning these new pitches, you get instant feedback. So what is it like for you being able to practice and having to refine your skills and not having that room for mistake in practice, because that just makes things a lot harder. It has to make you better. You have to have that good process going into, if you want to touch on that a little bit, because you're in a really unique scenario
Mhm.
to where you're having to learn these things against a very tough offense.
Yeah, I think there's a few aspects to that. I think one is as our analytics guy, Jack Mahalo, who's a little bit under the radar, not really like a face you'd see in the dugout or anything, but does so much for our program behind the scenes. But he's kind of built out his own model, just seeing how these pitches kind of grade out. And obviously that's not everything, but you throw these pitches in a bullpen, you get an idea of what the shape's going to be, and then he can kind of plug stuff in and see that might be a good thing to have. It might be kind of beneficial to just your arsenal and how it performs against SEC hitters and college hitters in general. So see that's kind of one of the first steps. And then obviously testing it against our lineup is I mean all you could ask for in a practice, and it's a situation where it's inexpensive time. It's like it's the results don't really matter, and you're able to just test these things out, but it still kind of does matter, and it still weighs on you when the performance isn't there. You don't get what you want out of it, but obviously testing it against such a great lineup like we have is, I mean, if it works against them, it should work against everybody else too, so which is a big thing. And then I think just the mentality of just going out there and being able to try new things, and I think that just strengthens kind of your mental game and your competitiveness. Like when you're not even going to go lean on your strongest weapons, you might be leaning on a pitch that you just learned 3 days ago against the number one team in the country and like arguably the best offense in the country. And I mean, if you can go out there and compete in the zone with something like that, I think that should give you all the confidence in the world. And it definitely did for me, just to give me all the confidence in the world that if I can compete against them with stuff, I can compete against anybody in the zone. So I think that's kind of the biggest things about that.
I, I was going to dive in and ask a little bit, to ask you, the things that your dad, has taught you, the things that from just a strong parenting influence, that you
Mhm.
take into, your daily process and you as an athlete, because I imagine, he's over the moon, but, I always think of when we first started, and ask the question of like, who's, one of your most powerful motivators or influencers competitively, like you mentioned your dad. So I want to,
Mhm.
kind of hit on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting, he's really the one that introduced me to baseball, and I mean, was always at the park playing catch with me or throw me BP or whatever it is. And he was one of the biggest pieces in that playing baseball. And I obviously thank him for that. And I think times when I didn't want to do something, or even with like the transfer portal, when I wasn't sure, like, am I good enough to go pitch in the SEC? Thinking about things like this, it's like he was always there to kind of to push me and make me just believe in myself when I might not have believed in myself as much. So I think he's always been such an amazing piece of my life inside baseball and out of baseball. I think he's been just great, and I couldn't ask for any better of a person to be my dad. I think a couple of traits that I've really just picked up from him. I think one is just being adaptable to the situation that you're in. I think he's always never been stuck in his ways about anything, and I think he's very open to learning. Just and this is all pretty much outside of baseball. I think he's open to just learning different stuff and just always kind of refining who he is as a person. And I think that was something that I've always admired about him and wanted to be, and kind of just took on as I got older and matured more. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then I think just such a hard work ethic and going through tough things in our personal lives, like we all do. I think just his work ethic throughout everything has just been unbelievable, and him just providing for our family and working so hard for me and my brother and our family. Just, I mean, it's just there's so many things that I could say about him, but he's just an awesome father, and I'm such a blessing to have in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing to go there, and actually go and work with you. And Smitty was on the field, and
Mm,
your brother Connor, your stepbrother, another Miles, an outfielder, is in college, and it was just amazing, to see
mhm.
that. But the best part was when the boys were hitting, I'm watching your dad running all over the place for these balls. Like I was like, that is amazing. That's just amazing. And people who don't know, he was out there fighting the forest fires in Orange County. I
Mhm.
mean, we're talking about we go to work, I get to come home, maybe the kids bother me a little bit. Like he's literally in life or death situations, you know what I mean? And I think too that genetic element from him to be able to handle stress, put your fear in a different place, go out, get your job done. I mean, that's in you, which is pretty tremendous. Um, we got games coming up this week.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about, okay, so we got this one game out of the way, got a recovery day that we mega dosed it, and then now we have a nice recovery day. But like, what's going to happen for you this week? What's your focus here?
So kind of getting that recovery in today was super important. I mean, that obviously starts immediately after the game. As soon as you come out and get your workload done, and then just the recovery process just starts taking right there. The 7-day countdown for us in college just immediately goes, and um, so kind of getting a lift in today, another lift in tomorrow. Really doing some kind of aerobic activity, whether it's on the bike or just running, just getting some blood flow to the whole body. Um, is going to be important. I think just keeping the soft tissue in good spot is really important, from tennis ball stuff to lacrosse ball to different mobility movements. Seeing the trainers, working with them is obviously all kind of all working together just to stay on top of that soft tissue and make sure all the tissue and stuff is right in your body and feeling good again going into the week. Kind of that throwing cycle will start again, getting a light day in tomorrow. A little bit more on Wednesday, and then bullpen again Thursday. And then probably just lift again Thursday, get the ArmCare on that day, really compartmentalize that load there. And then Friday and Saturday, pretty light days, just making sure the body is ready and trying to just do all the things off the field too, with hydration, getting good meals in, stay on top of that, stay on top of the protein, staying on top of the sleep and recovery. I think the sleep is one of the aspects that in the past 8 months I've really realized has made one of the biggest difference in just my strength day to day. And we're lucky to do some different force plate testing at school and different stuff like that, where we can test kind of that alongside with the ArmCare data. So just seeing usually those things kind of correlate. Sleep and recovery is good, then usually when the ArmCare data is up, and then the jumps are also up. And when the ArmCare data is a little bit down, then the jumps are a little bit down too. So seeing how it's kind of just a holistic thing and everything really matters. And I think that's just the most important thing about this week and then just throughout the whole season and even the off season too.
Yeah, you just take advantage of all the resources around you, which is
Hmm.
phenomenal. I can speak for myself and probably Jordan and Smitty, is that we're really grateful to be able to work with you, and you represent yourself in this game at such a high level. Guys, I don't have any more to add. Jordan, I'll turn it over to you if you have anything, and then if Smitty's got any, thoughts or questions. You got anything, Smitty?
No, I'm good. I mean, the player that you were thinking about was Cade Cavalli.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Yes. That kid,
very
that guy had a
detailed.
rap sheet, and I was like, that dude dialed in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's it. Miles is a great client, and he is someone that I saw with my scouting hat on, that I thought that I can help and that we can help, and he's on the path. We're getting
Yeah.
there.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm really grateful, guys. This has been an unbelievable edition of More Than Velocity. Miles, I am just so excited for you this year, man. Keep doing what you're doing. It is working, and you're always adjusting. And thanks for being on here for all of you. It's been a great
Yeah,
show.
I just wanted to say I appreciate all you guys too. And I mean, there's no better team to be working with. I feel lucky to have each and every one of you guys in part of this. And yeah, I'm thankful for everything.
All right, man.
Let's go.
All right,
Yes,
let's
sir.
go. Let's go, Aggies. This has been a great
Yep.
one. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks.